So in this lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and actually solve a quadratic equation here. And when it's a quadratic, it means it has a variable that's squared. So that's what's going to separate a quadratic equation versus something that's just a regular equation. So when we see something like this, the first thing that should automatically come up and just pop right into your mind right away is look for other variables. And as you can see, there are no other variables here. So right away, that tells me that I want to just go ahead and isolate the x squared. Once I do that, then I can go ahead and figure out on how to solve my problem. So let's see here. So we have 3x squared, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewrite it really quick. I know I like to use a lot of steps in math. It just helps me. So I'm going to subtract 10 to both sides because it's just like solving a regular equation. That's going to cancel out, and now we know that 3x squared is equal to, well, negative 14 minus 10 would give me a negative 24. Perfect. So what do I do? Well, by isolating this x squared, I'm going to want to divide 3 to both sides, because what you do to one side, you always have to do to the other. It probably sounds like a broken record. I'm sure you guys have heard that a lot in class. So now we have x squared is equal to negative 8. So are we done? No, we're not done yet. And the reason why we're not done is because we actually have to solve for an x. So this is an x squared. That doesn't work. And the way we do that is we actually take the square root to both sides. So remember, whenever there's a variable squared and it's isolated, meaning a variable squared is by itself, you have to take the square root to both sides. Okay? So now, when you have that, the square root of x squared, I'm just going to come up top here. Let's use a different color so you can follow along. That's just going to be x. Perfect. Now, what's the square root of negative 8? Well, the square root of 8, let's do this down here. The square root of 8 is actually equal to, if you break it down, it's going to be 2 square root 2. And if you don't know that, let me show you exactly what that means. We have square root of 8, which is 2 times 2 times 2, and it's the square root of that. And that's equal to, well, you take a pair out, and that's 2 square root 2. Perfect. So the square root of negative 8, though, is different. And the reason why is because I have a video that I made for you guys, and it actually talks about what's considered a complex number, or something where the square root of a negative number is in there. And the square root of, let's say, the square root of negative 1 is equal to I. So basically, I is equal to the square root of negative 1. So whenever you see a negative number, like you see right here, inside of a square root, it's always going to be an I that comes out of it. So the square root of negative 8, let's take this 2 square root 2, it's actually going to be plus or minus, because whenever we take the square root to something, we always do a plus and a minus. 2, now it's a negative, so we put I here, 2I square root 2. And that's exactly what that's going to do for us. So remember, whenever you have a variable squared, you take the square root to both sides. Your first thing to do is to put your plus or minus, and then if there's a negative on the inside of it, you're going to get the letter I on the outside of the square root. If you're having a hard time with that, please search my video and you'll see what I'm talking about when dealing with a negative number that you're taking the square root to.